Scott, philosophy and science of recent date have sort of gotten into a tangle where some scientists say that philosophy kind of messes up science, and philosophers say that scientists think they're not doing philosophy and they're just doing bad philosophy. As you look at philosophy, how can you see it being a positive contribution to increasing knowledge in the world?
Well, so, the first thing I like to say is that the world needs good philosophers, if for no other reason than to refute the bad philosophers, right? It's the same reason why we need soldiers, we need lawyers. Just having no philosophers is not an equilibrium, as we might say. But beyond that, I think that, even in the age of science, philosophy does play a very important role in helping to clarify concepts. I'm at a meeting right now with philosophers, and these days I go every year or two to meetings where I talk to professional philosophers, and I find that they're often they actually listen to you much more carefully than your fellow scientists do. They're really good at spotting imprecision in language or unstated assumptions, things of that kind. Now, at the same time, I also think it's true that the critique of philosophy is that it doesn't really make progress, right? It just goes around in circles. And that does have some truth to it. But I think that there is a sort of philosophical progress which is possible and which is wonderful when it happens. And this is that we can often sort of identify some aspect of a philosophical question that can actually be addressed using math or using science, and then we can just sort of break it off. And then we can tackle that. Okay, and then of course, people will say, but you've just replaced the real mystery by this other question that you can answer. And, we say, okay, fine. We should admit that that's what we're doing. We're using philosophy as an inspiration for science questions, but now we can keep returning to the philosophical question. We can find, okay, maybe, we can find a new scientific question that captures some new aspect of the philosophical question that was, that hadn't been touched before. And in this way we can actually make progress. So to give a few, there are many questions that people would once have called philosophical, like is nature determined or random? Right now, we have quantum mechanics that can say a lot about that. What is the nature of mathematical knowledge? Right? Since the time of Gödel's incompleteness theorem, we've learned that mathematics itself can say a tremendous amount about that question. What are infinitesimals, right? Can you have something, that's smaller than any positive number but greater than zero, right? Or, when you drop a ball, is it moving at the very instant when you drop it? Okay, today, at least if we've taken a calculus course, right, we hopefully no longer get confused about that sort of thing. That was, hugely confusing to the ancient Greek philosophers. So this is, I think, this is the closest thing to philosophical progress that I can see. People taking the ancient mysteries of philosophy and not quite solving them, but taking an aspect of them that, captures part of what people want to know about, and then addressing it using the tools of math and science.